This weekend we saw the 4th annual Shaw Classic, an amazing competition, 8 brutal events, so let's dive right into what happened.
Oh my goodness, Lazzy, what a weekend it's been. It's been a long weekend.
Yeah, it's been a long one, but an amazing one. 2 days of brutal competition. Brian Shaw, Kerry Shaw, their whole team put on an amazing comp. From what I can see, so many people that were there really loved it. And this was just a good, classic, tough strongman competition.
Yeah, no, 100%. 8 events across 2 days, 14 athletes. They had a couple of people drop out, but 14 is still a great lineup.
It's a great lineup, and it really was a great lineup. But right, we're going to start off with the log medley. The log medley was an interesting one for me.
It was really interesting. We had some surprise results here.
We did, and I kind of like this element because it's a little bit different to most other shows that we see, and I kind of like the tactical side of it as well.
Yeah, it's really divided opinion online though.
It has. I know some people don't like it, that don't like this.
Explain how it's done.
So basically there's 3 different logs. The lightest log is 172 kilos, then there's a 186 kilo log, and there is a 200 kilo log. They do something very similar at the Arnold Classic where you have the heavier log and the lighter log, and 1 rep with the heavy log will beat any amount of reps with the lighter log. The difference in this contest, however, is that at the Arnolds, the athletes will come out, try the heavy log. If they don't get it, they get to go back and rest, and then after everyone's tried the heavy log, they will bring the lighter log out, and then you come out and try and do as many reps as you can on the lighter log. This competition, the athletes can choose. They've got a set time limit. I think it was 75 seconds. I might be wrong.
So.
They have a set time limit that they can then start. Now, some athletes will be safe and go for the 172 to start with. Other athletes will take a risk and try the 200 kilos first.
They don't have to be done in any particular order.
They can be done in any order, but 1 rep with a heavy log beats any amount with the lighter log. And we saw a number of athletes come out, try that heavier log, make mistakes. It's a different log maybe than they're used to training. And, you know, we saw a few people really battling, trying to get super close. They almost got it. Tom Stockman in particular got very, very close to getting that 200 kilo log. But then he was kind of fried. Yeah. And then he tried to drop down, do the lighter logs, but unfortunately he'd used up too much energy. Whereas at the Arnolds, for instance, maybe he would have had time to recover and then come back out for a lighter attempt. But because he didn't get a rep at all on any log, you end up zeroing. So there is that element of risk by trying to go for that heavy log. I kind of enjoyed it, but it's really punishable if you don't make sure you get 1 rep on the board.
There was 5 guys zeroing as well, which meant 1 rep on the 172 kilo log suddenly became super valuable. So the 5 guys who zeroed, you've already said one of the ones that people will find most surprising, that was Tom Stockman. Luke Stockman also, who has always been known as an incredible log presser, he unfortunately didn't get a rep. Gav Bilton, he became, I think the travel, altitude, everything got to him. He looked so lightheaded. He went down a couple of times, didn't he? Yeah. Adam Bishop, who is obviously recovering from tricep surgery that he had last year, he wasn't able to get a rep. And Ivor Schmutzlis as well.
So 0 points for those 5 athletes really puts them in a huge deficit going into the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
But we did see some fantastic performances on this one.
We did. So there were 3 strongmen who managed 2 reps on the 200 kilo log. Now last year, Trey Mitchell was the only one who managed a single rep on it. He got 2 reps last year, 2 reps this year. Mitch Hooper also got 2 reps this year, as did Bobby Thompson. Now, unbeknown to us when it began, it's actually split times on it as well for scoring purposes.
They actually, as well as the kind of zeros that happened, rather than kind of people matching logs, it was done on time.
Yes.
So Trey Mitchell ended up winning this event. Bobby Thompson was second, and Mitch Hooper placed third. Yeah. Brian Shaw, really smart, came out focused on the middle log.
And 2 reps.
Didn't worry too much about doing the heavy log, but it paid off because he ended up being in 4th place.
Yeah. So next was the medley, and we've seen these types of medleys at the Shaw Classic before. This year it was slightly different. So the athletes had a weighted wheelbarrow, and then they had to run down this course, stopping to load sandbags into it. Really, really heavy and you can see he's got all of the weights at the front near the handles. So the weight is in the hand.
Yeah.
And then once they finally finish this brutal course, they have the vertical arm over arm pull to deal with.
Another interesting element with this was people putting the bags into the wheelbarrow, because we did see a couple of bags fall off.
Yeah.
Some people get a little bit unbalanced. Big heavy sandbags.
Yeah.
And then that was really just to kind of tax the grip and take it out of you before you get to the vertical pull.
So 7 athletes were unable to finish this course. The winner of this event, though, once again, because he won this event last year, was Maxime Boudreau, putting in a brilliant performance.
Great to see Maxime back as well. And these type of events are where he sort of excels at. His arm over arm is very good. His grip is very good.
Yeah.
Sandbag loading, he's really solid with. Just nice to see a really strong performance from Maxime on this one. Yeah. Mitch Hooper was not too far behind, and Evan Singleton came in third, and Evan really looked good like in the early phase of this competition. Unfortunately, it was the next event.
Well, we had a couple of problems, but we'll get to that. 4th place was Brian Shaw. Now, Brian, I feel, could have done much quicker, but he took about 10 seconds getting comfy for the arm over arm.
That's normal Brian, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We see Brian quite often making sure he is exactly set up how he wants to be. Yeah. We've seen that for many years with Brian, to be fair.
Yeah, and then Tom Stockman came 5th in this event, which was, he needed something good. And it was very hard because obviously he was one of the first guys out after zeroing the log.
Yeah. No, Tom after that log, I think old Tom would have given up.
Yeah.
New Tom kept battling, and actually the comp got better and better for Tom.
Yeah.
So the leg press was back this year, and last year this event was won with 8 reps. This year a number of the athletes went past that. So what we expect with these new events, athletes become more familiar with them, they get better at them, and we really saw that this year. However, Brian Shaw taking the win once again. The man has strong legs, and he absolutely beasted this machine. The only kind of, when you were watching, if any of you were watching along, we were watching, Evan Singleton also did 14 reps.
Yeah.
However, the rules beforehand were that if you take your hands off the implement, off the handles, that terminates your go. And Evan, trying to get the crowd hyped up to help him with a few extra reps, took his hands off. Didn't know that at the time in terms of the rules.
Yeah.
Spoke to the referee and he cleared that up. But the athletes they were like uber clear with it. It was one of those things that was told time and time again. So understandable, harsh, because to be disallowed those 2 extra reps, and he ended up dropping from what would have been joint first down to 4th on an event. It is tough, mentally as well as physically, but the rules are the rules, and if they are clearly stated beforehand, then I do understand it.
So Mitch Hooper and Trey Mitchell tied for 2nd place on this event with 13 reps each, both a big improvement on last year. Evan, of course, because he had the 2 disallowed, he ended up with 12 reps given, and then Bobby Thompson had 11 reps. So big improvement on last year. So
event number 4 was the Atlas Stones. And notoriously, Atlas Stones is the last event in a competition. Brian decided to put it at the end of day 1, which I like, I almost get bored of seeing the Stones as the last event. It's a great event, but it's nice to see some variety. Sometimes I don't always want to see it in every comp, and sometimes not having it as the last event is pretty cool. So Atlas Stone's last event of day 1, and this was all about Tom Stoltman. After that disastrous start, he kind of started to put some solid performances in, and ending day 1, as you'd expect on the Stones, he blitzed through them.
Yeah.
Like he does, one motioning almost every stone.
4 out of 5 of them, he one motioned. Yeah.
His ability to just kind of lift stones is on another level right now.
Oh, we had a great battle at the end. The last pairing was Brian Shaw and Mitch Hooper. Now, Brian, he won out of the 2 of them. He ended up 2nd place overall. He got the stone up notably quicker than Mitch, but in terms of a hands-off,
it was pretty close.
It was almost supposed to like, hands off, Brian. But it was close, but Brian pipped Mitch there. Mitch Hooper in 3rd place. Trey Mitchell came 4th on the stones, always been a great stone lifter. Ivor Schmutzlis in 5th place.
You always rate Ivors when it comes to stones.
Ivors is a great stone lifter. Yeah. And then Gav Bilton putting in a great performance there as well. I think Gav is someone who really suffered with the altitude up there. His first time going somewhere like that.
Gav was a warrior weekend. He kept fighting on every event. There were times where I thought he was out of it, and he'd dig deep and kind of come back. So just so good to see Gav doing well, and I'm sure he's going to, enjoy coming back to Cardiff in a few weeks after having such a big opportunity to compete at the Shore Classic. So start of day number 2 was the Max Hummer Tire deadlift. Now, let's remember last time they did the Max Hummer Tire deadlift, we did see a world record, but it was the first event. already done 4 events. I don't think anyone was expecting world records, and we didn't see any world records. What we did see was a great competition, and I really enjoyed watching the deadlift. I think, to a lot of people's surprise, the winner of the deadlift was Tom Stoltman.
Yeah.
Tom looked fantastic at the deadlift. He pulled 499 kilos, 500 kilos, let's say. And he looked fantastic. The record holder, Alexei Novikov, it was a bit confusing. He didn't get the 500, the 499. And after the competition, he wanted to come back out and lift it again for the crowd because he felt he made a mistake where his shorts were a bit high and the friction of his skin on the bar was stopping him to pull it. And I found it weird, if I'm honest, because I understand an outside of competition lift for a record.
Yeah.
But to just come and pull the same weight as what's already been pulled by the winner of the competition, or the winner of the event, sorry, I just found that a bit odd. But he did come out and pull it.
Yeah,
he adjusted the shorts, made that technical adjustment.
And it didn't count in the points, did it?
No,
it made no difference to the competition. If anything, it hurts Alexei because he's going out again and doing something for no real reason. But again, Alexei's someone who did not come into this competition in full competition shape. A couple of months ago, he had surgery on his elbow.
He did indeed. I mean, Alexei, we had a real tie at 476 between 5 athletes, was it?
Yeah, and this was such an important lift for Brian Shaw because he missed this weight last year. And at this point of the competition, Mitch Hooper was still half a point ahead of him. And, Mitch really needed, ideally, an opportunity to stretch away from Brian.
He needed to beat Brian on the deadlift if he wanted to really have a legitimate shot of winning, knowing what the events were coming.
Yeah.
And it was so important for Brian, and Brian dug deep. It was hard by the knees, kept pulling, got it over those knees, and then once he gets it over those knees, he's very strong at that lockout. Brian just showed in that event, he has come into this competition prepared, ready. He's given 100% on this prep. He looked back to his best, He
did, yeah.
He really came in shape. And at this point, I think a lot of people were starting to think,
Brian's going to win this, yeah.
Event number 6 was the chest press, a new event in Strongman. Awesome looking bit of kit. It's basically a standing chest press with barrels that are lowered in after each rep. Now, I was watching the live stream and I wasn't that impressed watching the first person go. However, as more and more athletes kind of went through, you started to kind of appreciate the differences in terms of ability in the tricep and chest power. And, we ended up seeing 2 athletes managed to complete all the barrels. But Brian Shaw taking another win. The man was on fire at this point. He got all the kegs plus an extra rep.
Yeah, and it was Thomas Evans that other athletes get every single keg. And, Thomas is such a new athlete, the winner of last year's Shaw Classic Open. So he's had a really great year stepping up, and it's great to see.
After those 2, we had 4 athletes tied with 7 reps, which was Mitch Hooper, Bobby Thompson, Evan Singleton, and Kevin Ferris. What did you think of the chest press? Because it's a completely new event, and like I said, at first I wasn't that keen, but it kind of grew on me, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I really like the reset. I didn't hide the fact that I'm not a massive fan of machine lifts in Strongman. I don't mind the occasional one. I don't want a competition ever that's predominantly made up of machine lifts. I may as well watch someone train in the gym. It does feel very gymmy.
Do you know one thing we should point out is that a lot of people were saying, what happens if there's like a malfunction with the machine? Now,
it kind of malfunctioned on Brian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian Shaw, when he was going up, the keg got stuck.
Yeah.
And he was kind of waiting for that next keg to come in for a little bit longer than some of the other guys were. I think if he didn't go on to win, there could have been some, interesting things said, but it didn't affect the result in the end because Brian still went on to do more reps than anyone. So, even if it was timed, it wouldn't have mattered in that respect.
Yeah, but to answer your question, it was a good event in the end. I thought, this is going to be boring watching these guys, especially having already done the leg press as well. But it was really interesting to see a new event. I don't think I'd ever want to see it more than once a year, though. I don't think I'd want it
would be hard, because it's such a big bit of kit. It has to be saved, I think, for one of those like big epic competitions, a little bit like with the Rogue, with some of their kit.
Yeah.
If Brian's going to continue to get this bigger and better, it's cool when you go to these big shows and you see something visually impressive.
Yeah.
Something that you're not going to see at your average strongman competition. Event number 7 was bag over bar, and at this point the athletes were really feeling it.
Brian must have the most difficult bag toss in the game because it's
The
so
height
high, isn't it?
and the weight that he uses of the bags, definitely.
8 bags as well.
Yeah, this was a tough one. So only 3 athletes managing to get all 8 bags, so it shows you how tough it is. Obviously, with the height, Tom Stoltman, great event for him. Tom was strong on day 2. He really started to make a charge to get onto the podium. He did all 8 bags. Maxime Boudreau, who we know is an amazing thrower, showing that great form. Maxime, one of those athletes that, with the right set of events, as I've said many times, he is unbelievable. Unfortunately, a couple of weaknesses in this competition, especially coming back from the leg injury. The leg press cost him a little bit, one or two other events. But yeah, on his events that he's good at, he is an absolute beast. And the only other athlete to get all 8 was the man himself, Brian Shaw.
There were 2 athletes who managed to do 7 bags. So in 4th place was Evan Singleton. Good to see Evan pull it back after a couple of what would have been disappointments, because after the car leg press, what we didn't mention was that Evan had a terrible Atlas Stone run.
Yeah, he did.
He's not had a lot of luck on this Atlas Stone run at the Shaw Classic, looking back at his previous results. And I was worried at the time that he'd lost his head a little bit because of the events.
He seems to have really matured. Like, talking a lot, like Tom Stoltman is one that mentally now is an animal. Whereas a couple of years ago, he would let things get to him. And Evan's been the same. So good to see that evolution of these athletes. And I'll tell you what, Gav Bilton's throw, he tried to throw that 7th bag a number of times, and to get it after failing a few times, you tend to burn out very, very quickly.
He got it at this last second as well, which just made it really fun to watch.
So the final event was the Fingles Fingers into the power stairs. 2 fingers into 2 implements taking up the stairs. A 550 pounds and a 600 pound block. That is heavy. At the end of a competition, that is a heavy power stairs set.
Yeah, so Brian Shaw had a 6-point lead over Mitch Hooper in 2nd place at this point. Mitch Hooper had a 12-point lead over Tom Stoltman. What we didn't mention, we had one athlete pull out after day 1. Adam Bishop, unfortunately, suffered a small pec tear in the first event, actually, the log lift. So that meant last place, as long as you did something, became worth 2 points. So Mitch was in quite a safe position. Brian, with these 2 events, in quite a safe position also.
Absolutely. He knew he just needed to kind of, he knew what he needed to do. He didn't even actually need to finish, but Brian Shaw wanted to finish this event.
Of course, yeah. So the final pairing, of course, being Mitch and Brian. Mitch, I think he got to the point where he had like 2 steps left. He knew he couldn't beat Brian. He knew Tom couldn't catch him. So rather than, he was battered. He was obviously battered. He stood on the top and cheered for Brian as Brian, it was a struggle for Brian. He didn't sort of, just throw him up or anything.
It was a struggle for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we only had 5 athletes manage to finish this event.
Do you know who really impressed me? Ivers.
You always say how good Ivers is at power stairs.
He is, and it was really good to let everyone see how great Ivers is in such a big competition.
Yeah, Ivers ended up being 3rd on this event. Evan Singleton finishing strong was 2nd, but Tom Stoltman taking another win. Tom won the most events this weekend. 4 out of the 8 events Tom Stoltman won. It was just that first event that really, really cost him, what would have been maybe a higher placing. But Tom showing he's got that ability to battle back. Great to see. But this event was all about Brian Shaw. Like you say, I think all the athletes were out there cheering him on. Everyone at this point wanted Brian to get that fairy tale ending to his career. It's been such a long career, and to be able to go out on top, it must have felt incredible.
It must have. And Brian, after watching him at Worlds this year, you thought, I genuinely didn't think it would be possible.
There was glimpses of Brian at Worlds where you thought genuinely he's looking in great shape.
Like the deadlift in the group stages.
Yeah, he looked really strong, and you saw that improvement on the deadlift this year at the Shaw Classic. There was other, in the heats he looked really good. It was the final where maybe he kind of burnt out a bit, especially after that battle he had on the stone off.
Yeah.
But he's been looking good in glimpses, and he really came into this show in shape. No one can take anything away from him. For this competition, the man has prepared well. He executed well, which is something I often talk about. Doesn't matter what people do in the gym. It's about doing it on the day. And for these 2 days, he performed. He was the worthy winner of this contest.
Yeah, and a lot of fans saying, you know, with Brian putting in such a great performance, such a great result, does this mean he won't retire? But he was very clear about why now is the right time for him, and how, you know, he's battled and struggled with that for such a long time to know when is the best time to do it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go on to another comp and then sort of place down. Yeah. And also, at his age, with what he's achieved, with how his body feels, it's very different to being a younger athlete, you know. What has he got left to prove, firstly? So there's that drive. His body isn't recovering like the other athletes. You know, a lot of these other athletes are competing again in a few weeks. They compete regularly throughout the year. Brian needs to be selective and pick 1 or 2 shows, and that's just normal for an older athlete. I can just tell you from my own experience, I've been invited to a number of comps this year. Like, no. I've got 2 shows that I want to do, that's it. Because I just can't recover in time, and it'll be the same for Brian. But he did absolutely brilliantly. The standing ovation he got from all the crowd, but the athletes as well at the end, that was really nice. Cool to see. He's done a lot for the sport, and I'm sure he's going to go on and make this show bigger and better. So, So event number 8 was it was another medley. Let me start again. So event number 8 was the final event was not the power stairs. It
was fingers into power stairs.
Yeah. So this weekend we saw the 4th annual. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't even know what to say anymore.